I never foresaw myself going down the sales route. I had a hard hat on, sat in a lobby of a hostel, applying for a construction role.
Imagine you're creating this beautiful pearl necklace.
How you do anything is how you do everything. You have to really level up everything. And that goes for outside of work as well.
Welcome to the ISP NextGen Podcast, where we speak to salespeople about their journeys to help you demystify the profession. Now, today we are joined by Jacob Horn, Head of Sales Training and Coaching at Awin. And I'm really looking forward to this session because we're going to dive into some topics that are close to Jacob's heart. But before we do that, Jacob, did you want to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit more?
So my name's Jacob. I'm the Head of Sales Training and Coaching at Awin. We're an affiliate marketing network. I've done various different forms of outbound sales across my career, from door-to-door sales in selling solar panels out in Australia. I've done a brief stint in recruitment as well, which was really great because I got to really learn and interact with entry-level salespeople. And then I really found a home in B2B SaaS sales. And I've been doing that, selling complex SaaS solutions for the last number of years.
Now, you touched on it a little bit there, Jacob, about how you got into sales during your time in Australia. Are you able to add a little bit more colour and tell the audience a bit more about that story?
So like many people, I never foresaw myself going down the sales route. It was kind of something that I stumbled into, and since then I've really thrown myself into that career. I actually come from an economics background. I foresaw myself potentially as a economics lecturer somewhere at some university, or maybe a financier of some kind. But I was actually out in Australia. I had a hard hat on, sat in a lobby of a hostel, applying for a construction role. And in walked someone from the solar company and just pitched the idea of, like, have you ever considered about sales? And we got chatting a little bit about what the day-to-day role was. And I just thought, why not? Let's take a risk. Let's try something different. And I had a friend who got into it with me as well. And I think that was quite a big thing because I'm actually naturally always considered myself quite an introverted person. So I wasn't 100% sure I'd get on with it. Yeah. But what I found when I did, and I gave it a go, was a whole world which was incredibly team-oriented. I built really, really strong bonds with the other salespeople there as we were going through what was a very, very tough role. It was 100% commission-based. Obviously, going up and knocking doors at such a young age was very, very nerve-wracking, but it was incredibly rewarding as well. And as I spent more time and really started to build out my skill set, I started to also understand that I viewed sales kind of like the science of conversation, and that really enthralled me. And then very quickly started to understand that actually there's potential here, and I should start looking into what does a career in sales look like. And when I got back from Australia, I started to pursue not only the economics route, but I also started to explore the sales route. And it was connecting with Pareto law, which was actually my first role or into the sales space, where I really started to understand what sales can offer, and understand that going down the B2B sales route, it can take you right the way up the career path. And that really drew me in.
Yeah, for sure. Just on the economics professor route, I could definitely see you in a tweed jacket, elbow pads, Now, of course, sales is an incredibly fulfilling career. As you said, it's that sort of science of conversation and relationships. And that really is the goal. But there are equally a number of challenges that are presented, especially early on in your career when you're still sort of cutting your teeth, getting to grips with the ropes. Are you able to share more info on some of the challenges that you did face early on? And I'm envisaging you just checking for spiders on doorways in Sydney,
There actually was some of that. Yeah, you've got to be careful. Two things come to mind with that question. I think when I got into sales, I had an image in my head of what a salesperson should be like. And very often I was turning up to work, kind of putting on my salesman's outer exoskeleton as it was, and I wasn't really being authentic to myself.
Yeah.
And I think it took me a long time to realize that just being me and trying to actually answer the question, who am I? What sort of product do I actually get fulfillment out of selling? What sort of environment do I really thrive in? I think I was really battling with that for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and I see it a lot in SDRs. Sometimes what holds them back is, rather than just being themselves, they really need to, shed that idea of speaking in the way that they think a salesperson should sound like,
Yeah.
writing in the way that they think a salesperson should sound like, because actually that's incredibly visible to our prospects. So for me, I had to really take some time to connect with and become a little bit more authentic in the role.
I know that I've experienced it and still do experience it to an extent. Even now, I had this image of, a salesperson, grey suit, briefcase, really trying to fit that corporate mold, and I was so unhappy during that
Yeah.
period. And it's as a result of various things that I've changed, and things that I've lent into that has given me that fulfillment and happiness. So I really love that, and I think it will resonate with listeners.
The other challenge, I think, is many people sometimes look for a quick fix. It's, I'll change my cold call opener, or I'll write an email in a slightly different way, or I'll restructure my cadence, and that's going to make me, that's going to take me to the next step or really unlock the next level for me. But what I've found when it comes to the biggest challenges I've faced, it's been deep personal changes to me. And I think a huge one for me was actually personal organization. I was that guy at university that just turned up, had no plan of what I was going to do for the day, sat on the lectures, went back home, and each day was just kind of rolling into the other. And I was like that as a salesperson as well. And what I found is I had to completely change the way that I turned up at day-to-day work. Now my diary is time blocked to the most minute detail. Everything is organized. At the end of every day, I reflect on the day. I pre-plan what needs to get done tomorrow. At the start of the week, I'm very organized in what I want to achieve. And that's deep personal changes. And if you can unlock what's really holding you back, those are the challenges that you'll overcome and take you to the next level.
Now, you also touched on sort of finding what works for you, and finding that driver, that purpose in a profession that is filled with rejection. Resilience is incredibly important, and having that clear purpose does help to drive an element of resilience. It gives you that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But why do you think it is so crucial for salespeople to find their purpose?
I've always looked at it in the lens of like turning up every day with intentionality. It's not necessarily just focusing on the results. It's everything. It's how am I turning up each day, and what am I working towards? And in that, when you have purpose, it's easier to overcome the challenges because you're working towards something greater than just the results. But those that really connect with the purpose, and why I think it's so important, is it will give you an intrinsic motivation. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen it. And actually, I had my own story in my start to sales that was very similar. The most ambitious and incredibly talented salespeople can start their career and absolutely smash it for 2-3 quarters. And then all of a sudden, if they hit a personal goal, or maybe all they're motivated by is the fact that they're trying to hit their targets, if there's nothing beyond that, nothing deeper than that, all of a sudden results can nosedive. And I think purpose can be a big factor in that. If you connect with your purpose and you have something always on that really drives you, there's never a reason for you to hit a goal or reach a milestone and then all of a sudden lose all of your drive and motivation. And then it becomes really difficult for you to stay focused at work.
Yeah. You used a word there that I absolutely love: intentionality.
Yeah.
It's rather than just being physically present, actually being fully switched on, fully engaged, being mentally present and there, and it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I really love that. Now, in previous conversations that we've had, you've shared a couple of techniques that you've used both yourself and with members of your team. Are you able to share a little bit more about those?
So I have 3 exercises that I typically do. The first one is focusing on the here and now. So starting with the most immediate things in someone's life, and I call that the inspirations exercise. What I try to do there is ask the question, take a look at the people around you in your life now and think about those that inspire you. It doesn't need to be that they inspire you in all ways. It could be small things that they do that you wish you could do, or you want to do, or you want to know how they do it, or traits that they have that inspire you and you want to adopt those traits for yourself. And I think what's good about that is if you start to study the people around you. So for example, like my greatest inspiration has always been my father. And for sure, once I started to really think about what is it about my dad that inspires me so much, and there is a work ethic that he has. He's spent his whole life in the construction field. Still to this day is working relentless hours. And he has a very selfless attitude as well. Everything is for the good of the family. And these little elements, and there's more broadly, other mentors I've had in my life who I really appreciated their wisdom or their guidance or the way that they would articulate something complicated in a simple way. That inspired me. What you do when you start to recognize those things is you're understanding what you value. Even if you don't have it right now, even if you don't embody those things right now, you're starting to understand what you could be motivated to embody in the future.
Yeah.
And that small exercise, I think, can be very helpful. Write that list down, because now you can intentionally turn up tomorrow and be, how am I going to embody the kinds of things that person inspires me in? How can I be more like that trait? And even it could give you a list of questions. Go and ask questions to those people. And once you start to learn about those things again, you can be like, right, for the next year, I know I'm working on my patience. I know I'm working on my emotional control. For the next year, I'm never going to be late to a meeting again. Yeah. You're applying intentionality in the day-to-day. You're giving yourself future goals. You can find, even if it's short-term, purpose in a lot of that. Another exercise is the reflections piece, which is take a look at your past experiences. When you look back on your life, if someone was to ask you, what are you the most proud of? You might be surprised at what bubbles up towards the surface. And this is a big one for me, is after being in sales for a number of years, the thing that I was most proud of was when I ran a one-to-one with someone and really unlocked or understood a challenge that they faced and helped them solve it. And I got more reward out of their success than my success, and that taught me a lot about, hang on a second, how do I get more of that in my life? And how can I act in the future? What can I work towards to give me more experiences about the things that really, has given me fulfillment in the past?
Yeah.
And then the final one, but imagine yourself at 65 years old or 80 years old. What does your life look like at 80 years old? What's different between now and then? How does 80-year-old you act, think? What have they achieved in their life? Because when you really start to think that far in the distance, the things that come to the surface there are going to be the long-term goals that will really provide you fulfillment. It could be that person is incredibly family oriented. That person is, has financial freedom and is able to take care of their family. That person is incredibly wise. I always had an image of me, 80 years old, surrounded by grandkids, telling life experiences, stories. And that taught me that I'm someone who should seek wisdom. Yeah. So there's a layer of 3 exercises there that I think you could point you in the directions to bring some form of cohesive narrative together that you might find purpose within.
discovery is something that you value incredibly high, the importance of asking the right question. I know that you've got a process that you share and encourage within your team members. Are you able to talk us through that?
What we were just discussing was self-discovery. It's how do I ask myself questions to learn a little bit more about myself so I can understand the kind of story that I want my life to look like.
Yeah.
Prospects don't join sales calls with a metric in their mind that they're looking to hear. Or if they've got a 30 plus ROI, then I'm going to buy their product. They don't even join a call with a pain in their mind, like if this person can solve this pain, then I'll buy their product. Those things are part of a much broader narrative. People, and this is a natural thing that we do as humans, right? We absorb so much information in the day to day that our brain compartmentalizes the most important pieces and creates a narrative.
Yeah.
What I try to teach is how can we as salespeople ask the right questions, really focus on curiosity and active listening so that we can understand what's the story that this prospect is telling themselves in their head about their current role, about the issues that they're facing, and about the future if those issues aren't solved. And your goal should be to find that through line, to understand the narrative. It might feature within that narrative a couple of metrics that they're looking for and a couple of pains, and you might be able to bring in your product. But if you really want to get someone to buy into your product, you're not selling a feature, you're not selling the solution to a pain. You are selling the future story of what their life could be like. And you have to understand the story that they're currently going through in order to create that narrative.
There was an analogy that someone shared with me once that it is, imagine you're creating this beautiful pearl necklace, and the pearls are those nuggets of information. And what you're doing with the story, as you mentioned, is getting the necklace and weaving together the different pearls. But it's really important that once you get a pearl, don't just chuck it on the necklace, polish it, really get to the root of it. Find out as much as you can by asking the right questions, by embodying and really living that curiosity. So you're not just asking to try and get a stat, but you're asking to genuinely understand.
I really like that analogy. Yeah. Your goal isn't to find pearls; it's to create a full pearl necklace.
Now, you mentioned about some of the frameworks that you encourage in the team to, I guess, sort of rationalize and help the team navigate through some of those perhaps tougher discovery calls.
The first place I start when trying to teach this is with question frameworks. And there's a number of different question frameworks out there, and you could find ones that work for you, that work for your business, that work for the kind of product that you sell. The ones that we use is the RAIN framework. It's an acronym, RAIN. There's also SPIN, SPIN. There's SHIFT. There's a few frameworks out there, but largely all of those frameworks actually have the same foundation, and you're going to recognize some similarity to the exercises that I was talking about before. The core idea with the questioning frameworks is the first place you should start is with the here and now. You need to understand their current situation. So that can be very, very simple questions like, tell me about your business, tell me about what you do. For us, we sell affiliate marketing, networking services. So we might ask, how are you currently driving traffic to your website? If you can, well, the common mistake is that people immediately try to find a pain. And as soon as they find a pain, they feel like they've done their job and now they can sell if we can solve that. But even if you understand someone's pain, if you don't understand about their business in general, about what they actually do, if you don't even know what products they sell, how are you supposed to help them as a business? So the first place to start, really get a deep understanding of their current situation. Yeah. Next, you would then move into their goals, their ambitions, what are they working towards, as well as what's holding them back. And this is where you get into the second sections about goals, pains, built off of the foundation of actually understanding what their current situation and how they currently work.
Yeah. Oftentimes, the pain that's being experienced is purely a symptom of something a lot deeper. And what often happens as salespeople, we get happy ears. We're like, there's a pain. I can solve that. Fantastic. I'm going to solve that symptom.
Yeah.
But it's not really going to have any true tangible impact, because it may that the symptom may have been caused by something completely different that hasn't even been seen or understood by the prospect themselves. So part of our job is about really trying to uncover that root cause.
Yeah.
So the framework that you're explaining sounds like it really helps an individual, helps guide an individual to get to that root, because it can be so easy for the conversation to go elsewhere.
The thing with just finding a pain is there's no story there, there's no narrative, and you need the narrative to really create a compelling case for someone to actually work with you. So the final parts of the framework would be, once you've found the goals and their pains, it's all about understanding how important are these goals? How big are these pains? How much of a difference is this going to make? Is this a really, really important goal for you to achieve or pain for you to solve? And then finally, once you have that piece, you're finally in the realms now where you can bring in your product. And what you're trying to do there is start to understand, ask the kind of questions that would get the prospect to think about the future. So, right at the end is where you might bring in your solution to be like, right, what would life be like if you could do this? Okay, that's powerful, because you have a full understanding of where they are right now, where they want to be, what's holding them back, how important these goals and challenges are. Now, when you ask those kind of questions, rather than that being your first question or second question, there's a lot more weight behind it. And the prospect can truly believe you as a salesperson when you say, we can solve that.
Yeah,
they're going to trust you a lot more. Why? Because you actually understand the full scope of the story that they're currently going through. I think some discoveries, techniques that are taught are just a little bit too transient, a little bit too simplified. So we go for deep discovery and take those prospects on that journey.
And the framework itself helps the salesperson not to get lost in the discovery, because it's easily done right. And in terms of that, envisioning the future, it's, how big is that party going to be once this solution goes live? Who else is going to be there? Is it just your team? Are there other functions there? How much budget is going to be thrown at that because we've made you X or saved you X? Love that. We're building towards the big finish, the third point that I want to talk about. Before we do, I want to ask just a quick palate cleanser of a question. If an 18-year-old Jacob was standing in front of you right now, what one piece of advice would you give him?
It was kind of a throwaway comment from one of my previous sales directors, but when he said it, it kept coming back to me. And now this is what I say to all of my new SDRs, and this is what I would have said to an 18-year-old Jacob if I could speak to him. It's the phrase, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you want to reach high performance in one area, you have to be high performing in all areas. The SDR whose CRM admin is perfect, their one-to-one notes are done and ready to go before the meeting happens itself. It doesn't surprise me that that's also the SDR who's achieving their targets month in, month out, and has absolute consistency. And that goes for outside of work as well. In order for me to get where I have got in my career, I've had to be, I've had to stay up late a lot less. I drink a lot less now. I really focus on getting good quality sleep. because my life outside of work bleeds into my life inside of work.
I just want to bring back that word, intentionality. It's
100%.
about being intentional in what you want to get out of what you're doing. Now, as I said, we were building for the big close, the logical close to the session, but equally, you've spoken in prior conversations about the importance of active listening and how that enables that logical close, where it's illogical for the prospect not to continue the conversation with you.
The term logical close actually came from when I was an SDR. I was selling into construction, and one of the managers at the time did a presentation on this idea and mentioned that when you close your call, that cannot be generic. It cannot be, great, I've had a fantastic conversation today. I really believe we can help you as a business. When are you available next? Have you got any time next Thursday or next Friday? It needs to be so illogical for them to not want to take the next step. And in order to do that, you need to really make sure that you're utilizing all the information that you've learned throughout the call. Let me show an example that might help conceptualize this. This is all rooted in active listening. As you're going through this discovery call, what you should really be trying to do in your mind as you're going through that journey with the RAIN framework and using your active listening skills to get deeper and deeper into conversation is start to craft that narrative in your head. What are they currently going through? What does this person care about? How do they feel in this situation? What are the most important things that they need to change? And when you get towards the end of your call, you need to bring all of that together into a cohesive narrative that you use to close out the call. So that might sound like, I can really tell that you guys are focusing on growing your brand. And I know it's really important for you to start to break into some of these other geographical markets. Although it sounds like what's really holding you back right now is perhaps a lack of experience in those markets for you to feel confident. That's where I really think we can help you. What I'd like to do is book on the next call where we can show you our expertise and show you our technology that will actually allow you to break into those markets, and you can leverage our experience so that you can begin to hit those revenue goals that you've got set. Now, that next step is going to be a platform demonstration. Would you be available next Thursday or next Friday to do that? Again, this is just off the top of my mind on a fake scenario, but hopefully you see what I'm trying to do there. It's don't just ask for next steps. Use that active listening to create the narrative and bring in the next steps as part of that narrative. In that way, you'll have your prospects will be able to see the value behind giving you any more time than they've already given you. So I think that's where sometimes next steps fall apart, or people don't turn up to the demonstrations, or the next steps of the process is sometimes we do a great job of discovery, but we don't make it incredibly obvious to the prospects about why, what's in it for them. And that's where logical close really comes in. It's about utilizing the active listening, making great notes as you go along the call, and then bringing that all together into your close to make it illogical for prospects to say no. And if they do say no, if you do that and they turn it down, it's because you didn't have a very compelling narrative and they probably don't need your product.
It pays dividends further down the line when you are running that demo. You know exactly the marks that you need to hit because you've understood that story in so much detail that you're not going to give, a demo of the full capabilities because you don't need to. This is the focus. So you're then maximizing your time and the prospect's time as well.
That's an important point you mentioned at the end there, actually. Another way of thinking about discovery calls that I think is helpful in this regard as well is there's probably 100 things that someone could see on the next steps on a demonstration, and your job should be to find the 5 things that they actually care about and then tell them that they're going to see those 5 things at the end of the call within the logical close as well, right? A good test of if your logical close is good, your manager should be able to listen just to the close of your call. And just from that last minute, they should understand everything that you learned about the prospect throughout the rest of the discovery call. And I use this as a test because within the close, I should know what their goals are. I should know what their pains are. I should know which features they're going to see on the demo, which are going to help them the most, because that's the end goal of the discovery call, is to bring it together in that narrative. So it's a really good test for any sales managers out there. If you're teaching this logical close idea, use that as an exercise. Just listen to the close at the end of the call and then see if you can find out or you can hear exactly what happened in the rest of the conversation.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that to myself. Just watch the last 3 minutes of the call and see whether I see that beautiful pearl necklace or not. So I love that. Jacob, thank you once again. And to everyone listening, until next time. Next week on the ISP NextGen Podcast.
When you become an AE, you get complete happy ears and expect everyone to buy, and that's not the case.
You mean you didn't get into sales for the admin?
You should have a really clear understanding of how you are going to support before you reach out. When you have that notification that someone's opened your email, you should almost be a bit offended if they don't reply.